Hi, and welcome to Andy K's Tarot. I'm here today, and I'm going to do a reading on my Saturn setting. So, when Saturn moves over your ascendant, then your Saturn is setting. It's not very long, depending on how long of an orb you give it. Right now, it's exactly conjunct my rising sign, and you know, at the end of the month, it's going to go into the shadow period for a little bit through a few orbs. And Saturn has really huge impacts in your life, which is why, people are very concerned about their Saturn returns and their Saturn oppositions. But if you know it's coming, I mean, I was doing astrology before my Saturn return, so that was handy. You can make use of it. And so I've learned to make a lot of decisions and timeline goals, particularly based on Saturn. And so I had timeline goals during my Saturn opposition, which finished in 2020 at the end of the Saturn retrograde. So I had a fairly long Saturn opposition. But I was prepared for it. And I had goals that I wanted to accomplish before the end of my Saturn opposition, and I achieved them, and that included moving. And then in the end, because I had things in place, and if you have things in place, things go really well for you with Saturn. Saturn's represented in tarot by the World card, which is everything, literally. So, good things happen if you get things in order with where Saturn is in your chart. So, from moving in time with my Saturn opposition, by the end of it, I took a chance and moved without finding what it was I really wanted, and knowing that if I took that first leap of faith and did that early work, it would happen. And so I did that, and then what I wanted came around, and so on and so forth. And I knew it was time to move into a new stage of my life, because what I was essentially doing with my life isn't going to be really feasible in another 10 years. I'm 45 right now, so when I'm 55 or 60, I'm not going to have the same level of physical energy, strength, all of that to be running hot and wild all the time. And so I needed to move into another phase before that happened. And so that came into play too, and I started the tarot deck. And so when I got to the point where things were really going in the tarot deck, I chose when I wanted to really be finished these cards, based on my Saturn setting. And I was working through it, and I knew that my end date's my Saturn setting, and I got the Tarot Journal from Mother Mule Books, and the Astrology Journal from Mother Mule Books, and I'm filling it out, and they have all these great pages. I had to draw in charts because I don't know how to read a list. I only know how to read a chart. And so they have all those other pages. So I drew in a transit chart for a month showing the movements, and then was able to find my transits and put it in the calendar, which is really handy because I'm doing the calendar. I'm like, this is a month my Saturn Setting's ending. When did it start? And so, anyway, I was really happy about that. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to do a spread for guiding this exact conjunct period of my Saturn setting, because Saturn setting, these things are really positive things if you use them in your life, right? So with Saturn setting, there's a fierce loyalty and stuff also, but this is a time where, like, you can get into making a long-term commitment on something, and you can find success, and you know, you aren't afraid to, like, take charge, and you can conduct the energy how you want. And I mean, it's Saturn, so using it for a successful thing in business, like creating a tarot deck, is a really good thing. So I want to have the hard work, the tarot deck, ready for the printers by the time before Saturn setting moves into the shadow period. And then in that early shadow period, I will get all the other stuff done and then launch it into Kickstarter. And at that point, everything's going to be going sextile my ninth house stellium, which is very exciting. So I've planned this, but now I'm like, okay, I need direction on how to direct this, like, really important wrap-up week, right? So this is Saturn, the world, and my rising is Leo at 4 degrees. So I pulled out strength for that, and I'm using the Star Spirit Tarot. And here's the deal. So I was like, I really want to do this. And I'm sitting down with my notebook, and I'm like, I don't know what questions I really need to ask. You would think I would also, with the Saturn setting, be a little more articulate. Ironic. Be a little bit more articulate, but, you know, it is what it is. The charisma will carry me through, which is the other part of your Saturn setting, is an articulation and a charisma. Now, of course, all these things have negative aspects too, but what you want to do is direct your energy where and how you want to use those planets' energies. So, obviously, I want to use it for positive outcomes in my life. So, I was like, well, I don't know what card fell down. Question I want to ask. So, we'll start with the one that jumped out and then pull these out. So I'm going to use the cards to direct the question. While I'm pulling a card, the first one's the one that jumped for my first question, which is the Tower. So this is probably about something that I need to change, okay? And so now I want to find what it is that I need to change. Okay. So, what I need to change is the Four of Cups. The Four of Cups may be really interesting, and something I remember so really clearly from recently receiving Querying the Tarot and also Querying the Craft is, in the Four of Cups, you can really get stuck in these moments of, when everything works out, when I get this goal achieved, everything will be perfect, everything will be worked out. And I really appreciate that interpretation. And, this can be, feeling that loss and that reluctance and, not seeing the opportunities in front of you. But this can also be about reconsidering things, and it can also be, really importantly, like, getting lost in the, like, oh man, this is hard, and I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to achieve this goal, and then everything will be great. And getting lost in that daydream of how everything is going to be great when you achieve that goal instead of achieving that goal. I have been working hard. I assure folks I have been working hard, but I definitely have moments of procrastination where I can definitely fall into that space. And then, if I try and make up for the procrastination, I misuse personal time also, right? Which is also really vitally important. And with a chart like mine, with an astrology chart like mine, can be really easy to just go, 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 and not stop. So, you know, um, falling into these daydreams ends up being my so-called personal time and can be really unhealthy. So, is something important for me to change and keep out of and reuse. And also in this, I would think, it's really easy when you're really, underprivileged, you don't have a lot of money to dream that my next thing that I'm doing is really going to change things and start to daydream bigger and bigger instead of focusing on your goals and getting them done and what you originally designed them to achieve. And that can lead to disappointment and loss afterwards. Whereas if you keep focused on what you designed this idea to achieve, what you wanted out of it, then there's not going to be that loss and disappointment and that version of the Four of Cups later down the road. So this is something really important for me to keep in mind. All right. Now we're going to find a card to represent the next question. So, the next question is going to be the Three of Swords. Interesting, right? So, it's just going to stay there. We'll see this again. So, the Three of Swords is going to be the next question. And the card might help me understand it, but, because, the Three of Swords means heartbreak and all these other things too. It could also mean, getting through a hard time. It could be, finding something really hard and difficult. And we have the Nine of Pence. So, I've been drawing the Nine of Pence and Nine of Coins a lot, especially as I near completion on this deck. And, a lot of it has talked to me about Nine of Pence messages of, and I've been getting Ten of Pence too, of accepting, the ability to receive in all kinds of ways, from receiving help and receiving things, and to giving to myself and looking after myself and giving yourself some self-care and self-luxury. But the Nine of Coins, it's a bougie card, but they work their ass off to get bougie. That's not to say if you work your ass off, you will necessarily get bougie. Plenty of people work their ass off and never get what they need to be bougie. But definitely this person worked hard too, at least in theory in the tarot. There's plenty of people who don't work hard. They're usually Ten of Pence people. Or the quartz. But the Nine of Pence, definitely worked really hard to, give themselves the luxuries that they give themselves. But one of the other messages in the Nine of Pence that's wrapped up in that really hard work is the Nine of Pence is, kind of lonely in her garden on her own with a bird, in this case an owl. Sometimes you can see somebody walking off in the distance away, from her garden, where she's there enjoying her wonderful garden and flowers and her bird. So it can be really lonely to be really head down. And it can be really easy for me also to get head down and work, and, come up for air and be like, oh, yeah, I didn't call any of my friends for 2 weeks. And then feel crummy about it and, but think about it at like 2 or 3 in the morning. So then I go to sleep and repeat the same thing. I know it's terrible. And I'm not always like that. I'm actually highly drawn to socialize. I'm a Leo rising. I'm a Gemini sun in the 11th house. I'm really, really drawn to socialize. But I can also really dig into something and just like be really narrowly focused. And this time more than ever, I'm more committed to it. And that Saturn brings a lot of commitment, especially as it moved over my Saturn and then my Venus and now my rising sign where I have my Saturn setting. So I've been at a lot going on with the movement of all these planets over Capricorn into Aquarius, because I have planets in Cancer moving over into my rising in Leo. So it's been really busy and a lot of self-work, but I've been pretty prepared for it. But, this week, that came back to hurt me. And because I found out that a friend is like having a really hard time, and I was completely unaware of it because I was really head down. And I reached out to a family member about it, and they were like, you need to do this. You need to finish this goal, and nobody else who was around could change it, and you weren't going to change it. Like, get over yourself, Nana Pence. And so that really speaks to me, especially with the Three of Swords. Like, sometimes I'm going to have a bit of a puff. Sometimes you make, some sacrifices for a reason, and your people support you, but that doesn't mean it's not going to hurt and feel lonely. So, and luckily I have people who understand that my deadline is based on things like the movement of Saturn because I'm doing something, life-orientated and business-orientated. So, I am lucky that I have that, and the Nine of Pence needs to remember that. She needs to remember that she's not always, or it better not be, at least I'm not, always alone in her garden kind of deal, right? Like, it's for a moment, at least for me, and then, like, the snow is going to melt, and COVID vaccinations plus warmer weather is going to happen, because, my snow's not going to melt probably till May, I'm told. And that's how it went last year. So, this is for a time period, and even like my first deadline is done at the end of this month, and my next deadline based on Saturn is done at the end of next month. And then I move into new stuff. And so, this becomes, more in perspective that I am not going to be in my garden forever. This is a moment for me to be in my garden. And there will be other moments in my garden in relation to things and works that I do. And, but I work in such a way that I get to come out, and be done work for a little bit and enjoy everyone around me. Just in this moment, it's a head down moment again. And I've been in head down moments before. This one is different though. It's gonna, you know, pay like closer to a living wage. Maybe not for the time I've taken me, but I don't know. We'll see. It will be worth it. It's going to build an eco-friendly tiny home that means I will live off a substantially smaller amount of money in life, as will another family of color who will also build one. So that's the deal. It's cool. It's good. And that's a good reminder. Something I need to hear. Sometimes you need to hear it's okay. And the next question will be represented by let's just put the questions down as we're done with them. The Lovers. So the next question is going to be represented by the Lovers. So this is probably going to be a question about me, like my personal agency, making choices and decisions for myself. I know it doesn't mean romance, because that wouldn't make sense for this reading, because romance isn't going to help me get a deck done. But, you know, it is also about making choices true to yourself. And that's what helps you find love eventually in the end anyway, is by continually making choices true to yourself. You find people, you know, who are also making choices true to themselves that feel good near your choices. So making choices true to myself is going to be the guidance for this next card. Okay. And we have Judgment. Oh yeah. This makes a lot of sense with the Lovers in this position. Okay, because the Lover speaks to making choices true to yourself, and Judgment speaks to rising up. So Judgment is where we rise up above other people's judgments, but we especially rise up true to yourself. We rise up over like our self-judgments and the things that hold us down, the things that speak us down, where we talk down our abilities, where we talk down our outcomes, where we talk down the hard work of intentions that we've set. You know, so this is where we rise up above it. And that really goes with me getting 9 of Pence in the other senses throughout this month, teaching me how to receive and how to, you know, give to myself and care in good ways and self-care. Ways that, you know, aren't necessary but luxurious. And so this is talking about a similar thing, but in rising up and not speaking down my intentions and my outcomes, you know, helps ensure that success that I'm looking at utilizing with this Saturn setting, right? So what does Saturn setting want? Ultimately, and can achieve, is, you know, success. And what's the biggest thing that can stand in the way of success that is a factor we can change and influence? Ourselves. I mean, there's plenty of factors we can't change and influence. And those are factors we have to work around. But the Lover's card speaks to choices for yourself. It speaks to choices you can change. And judgment here is so much about, that. It's about the self. It's about rising up over those self-judgments in this particular case, especially with this Lover's pairing. Okay? So, and this is card 20. It's the one before the world, which was Saturn, and which I threw back in the deck. And its numbers, 2 plus 0 is 2, is also the healer. Because rising up is about an inner healing. That's where you heal yourself so that you can rise up and wrap up a cycle and start a new one. And so what I'm really interested in, as we're going to look at all of this, is what was my shadow card for this? It's the other Lover's card. This deck has 4 lovers representing, 4 different gender combinations. And so that is my shadow card. So yeah. Looking at, utilizing this particularly important week in my Saturn setting, where it's like really conjunct, like exactly conjunct, and wrapping up the portion of my deck where the artwork is complete and ready for printers. And then from there I move on to the written stuff being ready. So, that's a big thing, and you want direction, and you're like, but I don't even know the questions to ask direction. So I pulled the cards. What do I need to change? I really need to focus. I need to focus on what I'm doing and not get lost in thoughts and fantasies and lose focus of my intentions. And, it's going to hurt for a bit because withdrawing and going into the things I'm doing I find really rewarding, but it also is hard for me because I also really crave that social energy. And, it does have choices like that, like diving into your work and not coming up socially for a while to meet deadlines and get things done does have real world impacts. And I also felt that this week. And I was also reminded that, you have the support to make these hard choices. You deal with them when it doesn't work out how you wanted. But everyone who supports you wanted you to make these hard choices for a reason. So you make them. You don't be hard on yourself when you see the 9 of Pence. And then I got the Lover's card, telling me this is about making choices true to myself, and that is to rise up. And that is where, you don't let, especially self-doubt and talking down intentions and where you're going, get in the way. And my shadow card was the Lovers. This is about making something for myself. This is about, the path that I is choosing to go. And the Lovers ties in really nicely with, even if it's not the card that represents Venus, it ties in nicely as a reminder of Venus, because it's the Lovers. And that, my Venus is tied into this whole Saturn and rising deal too. So, that is my reading that is carrying me through the next week. Not a calendar week, like not a Sunday to Saturday or whatever kind of week, but, you know, from here to the end of the month. And I hope you enjoyed that and can make use of it for yourselves. See you later, folks.